Hello people, this is Mark from Kharischangeworks. I hope you are well. If you are a regular follower of the channel, you would have noticed that over the last couple of days or so, I've been going on about patience. And whilst this is a very here and now thing for me and Lara also at this particular moment in time, I want to expand on this a little bit because you see, I think patience is one of these virtues that have been lost, as I say in the description boxes of these videos. And my thinking is the reason why it's a lost skill, a virtue that's being eroded through society, is because we live in such an instant society and everything is instant. Now, whilst we have to balance this thing with certain things needs to be instant, and yet other things we need to wait for. And it's a fine line in knowing which way to adjust our behavior in order to get the most out of life. So with that said, yesterday's video or a video or so before, I spoke about it's the birthplace of good things, where I mentioned sort of internal surgery, if I can say that, where certain things are being chipped away and at the same time other things are being built in during this thing called exercising patience. Now it's fitting to kind of continue with that theme, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips, maybe 4 or 5 of them, strategies if you want, what we can employ during the time of being placed in that pressure cooker where time is of the essence. And we are, dare I say, forced to wait. What can we do about it? What can we do to help us process this thing in a way that we don't feel as rushed, and at the same time we get the benefit of this, quote, internal surgery developing into something a little bit more patient. Who knows? So with that said, let's have a look at a couple of these little tips and hints that I think is quite important. Number 1, practice gratitude. Now I'll start off by saying again, gratitude is one of these things that definitely in modern society, it's very rare that you find people who can say thank you. It is as if this manners thing has kind of disappeared out of the niceties of social interaction. But what is gratitude? Gratitude is not just expressing thanks. It's easy to say thank you with a heart full of hatred or a mind full of malice. It's easy. All I can do is, oh, thank you. But inside that poison is brewing, therefore kind of watering down the integrity of the verbal expression of gratitude. Now I would say gratitude is a hand and glove exercise. It is a verbal expression with a genuine, heartfelt experience of thankfulness. So whilst we are in this place where time is of the essence, we can express gratitude. Now this might be a bitter pill to swallow, or it might be a big sweet pill to swallow. I don't know which one it is, but here we go. Whilst we in that position where we could and maybe should express this gratitude, but we don't feel like it, maybe it's then time to pause and consider those things that we do have. Now, we can consider things like we've got our health. At this particular point in time, we have certain freedoms. We can even go a little bit more particular and say we have sight and hearing and touch, and we can speak. In fact, effectively, we are alive. We can be grateful for those things. We have things to do, or we have the freedom to think. We can practice gratitude on so many different levels. But we can practice gratitude nonetheless. Now let's look at this from another point of view. Maybe, and this is what me and Lara have been speaking about more recently, is the very thing that we are waiting for. And we're in this process of waiting. Maybe the timing for that thing isn't quite right. And maybe this delay, this pause, is actually to protect you from future disasters or a embarrassment, maybe shame. Maybe we could be grateful for the universe knowing what it's doing. That's a massive step to take, I understand. In fact, at this point in time, real life story, I'm in that process as we speak. And it is not easy. That I can assure you, where you have been promised things and they're not there. These people who say certain things, in spite of making the utterance, it's not there. Now this is maybe a bit of a backtrack on a video that I made not too long ago, where I said this one particular chap disguised in human form but he's an angel. He's the chap I'm on about. Verbal expression of it's there, but the reality of it is it's virtual but not real. And I'm going to say yet, because we are in this waiting process. The universe knows. We have to have our mental and our spiritual minds aligned. And me and Lara are talking about this quite frequently, as you can imagine. But this gratitude thing is what we can practice to become a little bit more patient. So there's the first thing. Number two is be mindful of what is making you feel rushed. What is the motivator behind all of this? It could be your impatience. It could be a deadline. It could be other things where you've made promises. It could even be the society of busyness that is kind of keeping you in that momentum of continually having to be on the go, and now you're trying to go against that flow and it doesn't feel comfortable. We'll get to that one in a minute. But we need to pause and identify the what is making me feel like the what. I know it's a bit strange, but what is causing my feeling of rushedness, my impatience? That first what is really important to identify. And it might be a good idea to do a paper exercise and say, these are my triggers. These are my commitments. They are the ones that's making me feel rushed all the time. And then we can practice gratitude or other things, which I'll make another video on maybe in the future. So it's being mindful of the what. The why is up to the universe. In fact, my opinion is the why is because it's doing the internal surgery, the removal of unnecessary stuff, and the implementation of useful things. That's just my opinion. Number 3, make it a choice to choose to wait. When we choose to wait and we make that choice a choice, then maybe the pressure of performance of it needs to be done now will ease. Again, this isn't easy. But when we willfully and consciously make that choice to say, I'll wait for the universe to unfold its plan in the way that the universe unfolds its plans, then maybe it will also be easier. That takes a lot of guts, I can assure you. But this thing about making the correct choice under difficult circumstances. That, my friend, is not easy, particularly when you start to study the effect of how stress and adrenaline and cortisol, what it does to the brain and how it twists and bends the brain. You can understand why things aren't that easy necessarily. It is what it is. So make a choice to make that choice to wait. Number 4, embrace the uncomfortable. Now, what does the embracing mean? Imagine you coming up to your lover and you are embracing them. It is as if to say, I'm okay with this. I accept it for what it is. I can't change it, so therefore I will just take it in my stride. It is basically saying, it's okay. This comes back down to this choice and gratitude thing. This embracing thing. It might even be, as someone suggested, it is recognizing that it is uncomfortable, not necessarily intolerable. Maybe it's also a choice to see it from a third point of view, a alternative perspective, as if you are a fly on the wall, so to speak. Looking at it from a big picture point of view. And it is recognizing that being uncomfortable is not the end of the world. When it's intolerable, that's a different thing altogether. So whilst it's uncomfortable, embrace it. Because it is that helps us to grow. I know it's awkward and it's funny, but this is the way that I'm experiencing things. At least at this moment in time. So, embrace the uncomfortable. Realize that this uncomfort or discomfort, this feeling will not last forever. There will come a point where it will let it go and you will be able to breathe and be okay again. Okay? And finally, it is this whole thing about taking deep breaths. It's a mindfulness exercise. And in hypnosis, we ask people to take deep breaths. So what does it actually do? Well, the top and bottom of it is, while your body is pumping full of cortisol and adrenaline and the stress is running around at 100 miles an hour, it is as if the oxygen in your brain is being swallowed up by the cortisol and the adrenaline. And by simply taking deep breaths, it's actually giving the brain more oxygen, the very thing that it needs to try and function at its normal pace. And that, in effect, is then slowing it down. It's like coming down from a sugar rush, if I can use another analogy. So by simply taking deep breaths, might just help you calm down enough to be able to become grateful, to make that choice to become a little bit more tolerable. It's about saying, I'm being kind to myself. I recognize these things that are making me feel. It's that what I'm recognizing it. And I also recognize it's not going to stay there forever. It's going to be here for a little while. So in the meantime, I'm going to take a deep breath and fill my whole system with oxygen, and it brings things down. These five things that I've just given you, these are basic little tips that I think we should, and I'm going to use that moral operator of necessity, we should employ, particularly when we realize that deadline that is looming is now becoming more urgent. And whilst we are rushed on the inside and it feels like your heart's beating out of your body, it's making that choice to choose, I'm going to wait. And you breathe in. And when everything calms down, even as I have my whole mind, I could just feel it slow down ever so slightly. Helps put things a little bit more in perspective. So we can make better, maybe different choices. Where we embrace the uncomfortable and recognize from a third party's point of view, it's not the end of the world. Whilst we appreciate that internal surgery via the scalpel of the universe is removing the unwanted and putting in the helpful. I hope this video has given you reason to breathe deep, embrace choice, practice gratitude. I really hope it helps you. If it has, and you're in that place, and you practice these little things, these 5 tips, shall we call them, let us know in the comments box. Let's get the conversation going. But for when you are impatient and for when you are in need of doing these things, I would like to have some feedback, just to hear your story. So whilst you're doing that, the comments, please subscribe if you haven't done so before. Please tell your family and your friends if you have not done that before. Let's get the community growing, because I believe, and Lara does the same, that what we're talking about is real life issues. And we are trying to give you real life suggestions and help and advice. Things that we have gone through. And I'm hoping that we make it plain and easy to understand. I've said this before, this channel is rich in its diversity. And it's only a young channel yet, but there's many more to come. So please do all the YouTube admin as I refer to it as. But for now, this is Mark from Kharischangeworks. I'll speak to you soon.